Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Manchester City versus Chelsea, a seismic game of football. I cannot wait for this one. It's going to be a monstrous game, arguably City's biggest game of the season so far. It really is going to be a massive, important game for City because the rivals are going first this weekend. Last weekend, we played first and watched our rivals suffer as the pressure was too much to handle for all of them, and we went top of the Premier League, and we start this weekend top of the Premier League, but we may find ourselves second depending on the Wolves and Spurs result, of course, that play before us, and all our rivals have a chance to close that gap before we go to Stamford Bridge. It is the headline game this Sunday, 2 in a row for Chelsea. In fact, 2 headline games in a row for them because they were the headline game last weekend when they went and beat Spurs, which was a massive game for them. How well they played is up for debate, but the result is what mattered. They ended up winning 4-1 in the end, and Manchester City now have a chance to go to Stamford Bridge, Battle of the Bridge, and get 3 monstrous Premier League points, a place in recent history that we have done some really big statement moves, really big, powerful, really assertive performances from Manchester City. Going into Stamford Bridge, we have sent statements and shockwaves through the Premier League in recent times. Last season, super subs, Jack Grealish and Riyad Mahrez both coming off the bench and combining to make it 1-0. The year before that, Gabriel Jesus, with his tricky bit of footwork for Manchester City, finds the bottom corner, making it 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. 2 years before that, the Centurion season, an incredible season for Manchester City to go and get 100 points. But that season was the season when we really started to believe that this project of Pep Guardiola is massive and it's going to take us places. It really is. And I think a real postage stamp on our statement season for that season was that Kevin De Bruyne goal in the purple kit, that thunder bastard with his left foot right into the far right hand corner. Unsavable. All 3 games I just mentioned were 1-0 massacres, if there is such a thing. Completely dismantled them in terms of football, in terms of tactics, in terms of possession. Retention of the ball was fantastic in both those games. How we only won those games 1-0 is beyond me because we destroyed them in all 3 games I just mentioned. But we have gone further back than that and made even bigger statements. Battle of the Bridge, they called it. Wasn't Battle of Stamford Bridge, though. Wayne Bridge. Who remembers that? John Terry. That absolute scumbag that is John Terry, sleeping with Wayne Bridge's wife at the time. I mean, a bit of soap opera drama going on there. The 2 players crossing paths during the hands-shaking ceremony bollocks that they do at the start of the game, and Wayne Bridge refused to shake his hand, understandably so, but we go and spank them 4-2 thanks to 2 goals from Carlos Tevez and 2 goals by Craig Bellamy as well, who went into the post-match interview and said, oh, we all know what John Terry's like. We know what, he didn't even say John Terry, he said, we know what JT is like, don't we? Scumbag, in other words, John Terry, that hero that is their superstar, their poster boy of Stamford Bridge. Scumbag. That's what he is, a scumbag. What a twat he is. Unbelievable. But it's going to be a big game. It really is going to be a massive game. We've got plenty of connections between the 2 clubs now with Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer, of course. But let's get started with the team news first of all. Enzo Fernandez was a doubt, not so much anymore because he has been pictured in training more recently, but he wasn't in training during Tuesday or Wednesday's training sessions with Chelsea, thanks to Romero's red card tackle saw him go to the medical room for a couple of days at least, but he has been pictured back in training, so it's likely that Enzo Fernandez, their number 8, will be playing for Chelsea. Other players that are out are Fofana, Chilwell, Lavia and Kuku, Chalobah and Chukwuemeka. Some marvellous names in their team, isn't there? I love good names like that. But team news for City, Kevin De Bruyne, long-term absentee, which is a shame because he is someone who likes to haunt Chelsea just like Arsenal. He lives in the memories and he haunts their minds, doesn't he, Kevin De Bruyne? You know, one player that they had on their books and they foolishly let him go on the cheap as well. Wow, ended up Wolfsburg, didn't he? And then Manchester City superstar now, mate, Kevin De Bruyne. John Stones is the other one. That's a big blow. That's a massive blow for Manchester City. Sergio Gomez as well. He was on crutches last week with a sprained ankle. And Akanji is a doubt. I'm hoping it's not a serious problem for him because he's got a back issue. It was reported that he was ill last week, but he wasn't ill. It was a back issue, which is why he didn't play against Young Boys. You're hoping that's not long-term, but again, we have an army of centre-backs, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue to replace Akanji, but you start totting it up with John Stones and Akanji being out of the team, and suddenly you think, well done, Pep, for signing all these centre-backs, because we need them. We need them now. But I'm going to go with my predicted starting 11 right now because I do think it's interesting because Chelsea tend to play a 4-2-3-1. I have a funny feeling that they will. But should Chelsea play a 5 at the back? Because teams have recently gone to City and, all through Bournemouth played 4 at the back for the majority of the season. Young boys play a 4-4-2 diamond and they do that in every game. But all these teams that come to City, because we're Man City now, and no matter what your principles are and your ideologies, you better throw them in the bin, mate, because your ideologies don't live up to ours. You don't have the power and the players, the quality that Manchester City have to have in their back locker. So what you have to do is you have to change your formation and change your system to try and nullify Manchester City. And Chelsea they're no different. They're no different in that regard. They do have players that could play a 5 at the back. And let me show you something, because 2-3 years ago, this is what Pep Guardiola said. Have a listen to this.
Why Chelsea plays so good? Because they have 3 central defender closers, the 2 holding midfielders, rotating move closers, the pockets closers. They have a structure, the 5 and 2 players so close. And the distances are so close. And at the same time, they are so wide with the wingbacks. They are so deep with the Werner Muckers in behind. That's why you cannot be close, because they push you here, and a lot of good players in the middle.
Honestly, it's fascinating stuff. It really is fascinating. Just listening to the man, listening to Pep Guardiola and watching his hand gestures like he's landing a plane, like doing all these weird hand signals, like whatever he's talking about. It's just fascinating to watch. And if you understand even 5% of what he's saying, you come away a smarter individual than you did before that conversation, because the man is a genius, an absolute genius. I love watching him analyse football like that. It really is brilliant. And he's not wrong. If you do your research, Chelsea can employ these tactics again. The tactics that beat us in the Champions League final, they can do it again. And teams have done it before this season. In terms of playing 5 at the back, you do tend to have more chance to stop City and steal a result. That's the best way, because you're not going to go toe-to-toe with Manchester City and come away with it. I can't think of any team in the world. Bayern Munich, potentially, could go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, player for player, pound for pound, and come away with a result. Other than that, the rest of them have to change. They have to adapt to face this Manchester City side. And I think they can do it. I think Chelsea have got the players that need to adapt. And let's have a look at my predicted starting 11 for Chelsea. So this is the formation that I hope Chelsea will play. 4 at the back, exposed, very, very vulnerable. Very vulnerable. So obviously Sanchez will start in net. Similar, basically the exact same team that faced Spurs at the weekend, with Colwell, it was at left back, wasn't it? Which isn't his favourite position, but does a good job in there. Really good player. Reece James at right back, the 2 in the middle with Thiago Silva and Disasi alongside him. In front of them, Fernandes in front of them, as well as Caicedo alongside Fernandes, and then of course Raheem Sterling on the left with Nicholas Jackson up top, and Cole Palmer on the right. Cole Palmer, Raheem Sterling, they're the ones you worry about. They're the ones you just don't want to come back and haunt us, Conor Gallagher, of course, sitting in behind Jackson. Those 3 players, Cole Palmer, Gallagher and Sterling, have haunted City in recent years. Gallagher more so when he was in a Crystal Palace shirt. City fans will remember at the Etihad. Gallagher on loan from Chelsea at the time, went there to the Etihad, and I think he got a double, in fact, and beat us. So Gallagher has done reasonably well against City. At Chelsea, he's not really lived up to it. He's not really lived up to his qualities that I've seen in a Palace shirt. Maybe it's he's become more of a small fish in a big pond, where he was a big fish in a small pond at Crystal Palace. But if I was Chelsea and if I was Pochettino, which I'm not, Gallagher needs to be sacrificed, in my opinion. And then you start looking at the 5 at the back, which I think would suit Chelsea in this particular game, with Cucurella coming in as the left wing back, which is what Pep Guardiola was talking about. If I can find Cucurella, there he is, Cucurella alongside him, and Fernandes and Caicedo tucking in, which protects the pockets, which is likely going to see Foden and Alvarez, in my opinion, alongside them. Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer therefore have a bigger job to do, because they need to centralise themselves occasionally, because the lack of Conor Gallagher, there is going to be that middle is going to be exposed a little bit, but defensively assured like this, with the potential to really bomb forward with Reece James, Cucurella and Raheem Sterling, all have a lot of speed to get into the counter-attacking positions and effectively leave these 5 at the back, which is what I think they could do. In terms of City, I think it's becoming a bit of a formality now, what you can expect to see from Manchester City. I'll go on to the Manchester City team now, which going to start with Ederson in goal. The only debate is, what are we going to do in the absence of John Stones? What's the plan for life without John Stones, which could be a while, which is what Pep Guardiola discussed. I'm going to start with Ruben Diaz, though. Under the assumption that Akanji's fit, I'm going to play Akanji and ask him to do that John Stones role. I know if you watch my John Stones injured video, the most recent video I did, you'll see the details I went into in the heat maps of Akanji earlier on in the season. He has already done this, so this isn't unfamiliar territory for Akanji to play in this John Stones role, and I think he can do it. The alternative is Nathan Ake, who also can do it, in my opinion. Long-term, Gvardiol, I think he can do it as well, but I think he's finding his feet in this Manchester City side, and his left centre-back role of a 3 suits him right now. Let's let him find his feet in his current position, rather than making his life even harder by asking him to do multiple roles, and he's just joined the club. I think he's finding his feet, and let him find his feet in his current position. So Akanji is under the assumption, this is all prior to Pep Guardiola's pre-match press conference. I haven't heard if Akanji's out or not with a back injury. I'm assuming he's okay. If not, it's going to be Nathan Ake. Kyle Walker will be the right back on paper, with Gvardiol the left back. Again, on paper, up front, in front of them, is Rodri. As usual with Phil Foden, I'm going to go for tucking in at the left-hand side with Julian Alvarez alongside Phil Foden. Erling Haaland up top. And then I want that ball retention. I want that ball retention of Bernardo Silva on the right, and then Jeremy Doku on the left, which is the way I think City will start on paper. In practice, I think the game will start to look more like this, with Akanji making the box in the middle with Rodri and Akanji, Alvarez and Phil Foden, Kyle Walker, Ruben Diaz tucking in to make a back 3. And I think they're there for the taking, Chelsea. I think they're absolutely there for the taking. I thought they were poor against Spurs at the weekend. I really wasn't that impressed by the fact that they come away with a 4-1, but they were given so many opportunities. Incredibly wasteful. You know, if you look at Chelsea, the wastefulness, the profligacy of Chelsea is nothing in comparison to Manchester City, who are scoring in recent games, in the last 3 games, scoring a goal on an average of every 20 minutes. You know, so we're not being wasteful at all in comparison to the chances that we are creating. Maybe because we are creating a bag full of chances in our games, but we're coming away with 6-1 wins now. 3-0 against Young Boys, 6-1 against Bournemouth. We're finding the back of the net. Erling Haaland, who hasn't scored ever against Chelsea in a Manchester City shirt. It's going to be time. It's time to end that record once and for all, because I have a feeling Erling Haaland's going to be hungry for more, get more goals to his name as a total tally, as well as getting goals against Chelsea, which will cement us top of the league. With the international break coming up as well, that's a huge statement. Blues, get your predictions in, get your previews in the comments below. I really want to hear them. What are your thoughts? What do you think about my idea for Chelsea, which is more beneficial for Chelsea fans than City fans in truth? But in reality, I think that's the way you stop City. I think that's the best chance you have, Chelsea, because if you go 4 at the back, I think we can do him. I think we can expose them. And they were fragilities there, you know, they were frail against Spurs at time. 9-men Spurs were getting chances against them, you know. So if 9-men Spurs can do it, 11-man Manchester City, you fear the worst if you're a Chelsea fan playing 4 at the back. But get your comments in below. I really want to hear them. Like and subscribe. It really does help. I will be doing a watch along, of course, so come and join me for that this Sunday. It will be a good one. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up Silva.